Welcome back. I'm continuing my conversation with education activist and social entrepreneur, Dr. Louise van Rijn. And Dr. Louise, a pleasure to talk to you. And I know you're very passionate about your projects, but I want to take you back to where you started with Symphonia. What is the passion all about social entrepreneurship? Tell me more about it.
So Tim, when I had no plans to ever get involved in social entrepreneurship. I lived a very comfortable, cushy life in the UK, and I was flying around working with big companies like Nokia and BBC and Marks and Spencer. And when we as a family decided to come back to this country, my husband did not enjoy living in the UK and my kids were not happy, and so I needed to make a decision to come back. And coming back meant that I needed to reintegrate into this country, and I found that I just couldn't spend my time working with large corporates, helping them to make more money. I needed to do something more meaningful, more significant. And then I also realized that if we as citizens don't get involved in fixing the significant issues facing the country, that we will not have a country. And as a mother who brought my 2 children back, I couldn't live with the thought that I brought them back into a country that actually does not have a good prognosis, because we're all sitting in our comfortable corporate offices blaming and complaining and whinging and whining and pointing fingers. So I needed to do something to get involved. I needed to play my part, and now 10 years later I can say to you that that was the best decision ever. I do not have as much money as I would have had if I stayed in corporate. I don't drive a nicer car, but my life is much richer. I know I'm part of the solution. I live a life of meaning and contribution. I'm surrounded by people who show up with humility and passion and compassion, and that's where I want to spend my time. So I'm looking forward to the next 20 years of my life working in that environment where you work with citizens who care and people who give their best, rather than just being selfishly focused on me and myself and my comfortable life.
Well, as you continue to support and help improve the education system in South Africa, and we're very appreciative of that, the questions will remain that why do you think that the education system is in this state? I mean, it's 24 years, and it looks like it is one area where we're not doing well, and one would have thought that that's one area where we should have had impact, irrespective of the history that we've had. After all, we've had struggles in the education terrain that run for decades, right? Even during the apartheid days. So one would have thought we have a plan of sorts, or a new approach, a new way of thinking of improving the education system. What do you think?
The reality is that in 1994, when our new government came into play and new people took over, they did not acknowledge, and I think we should all be willing to say that they did not acknowledge that the disparity between the 5,000 at that time kind of functioning schools and the 20,000 dysfunctional schools, they didn't understand the size of the disparity, and I think there wasn't enough appreciation about what it would take to get basic functionality into these 20,000 schools. So, I saw Professor Jansen said something the other day. He said the challenge we have is that people think that we have a basic level of functionality in many of these schools, and we don't. And we don't, not because we don't have amazing people in those schools. They are amazing. They're passionate, they care, but they have not been equipped with the knowledge and skills to do the work. So Harvard has done some work to say, what is the best thing that you can do for the children in a system? And they said, the best thing you can do is you need to work with the adults. We need to equip the adults with the knowledge, skills, and experience. And our government, for whatever reason, over the last 24 years, have not been spending their time there. They've been spending their time on new curriculum and restructuring organizations and doing a bit of training around CAPS, etc., but they haven't been spending their time on equipping the human beings that are in those schools and need to do the work. It's similar to saying, if you're a large corporate, if you're a bank, and there's a particular bank that's not working, you go in and you keep fiddling around with the tellers, when actually you need to make sure that the ecosystem is functioning. So we have to, nationally, as a nation, we have to focus our attention on developing well-functioning organizations, and we have 20,000 organizations that need to be moved to a different place. So we're working with 815. By the end of the year, we'll be in 1,000 schools, but it's not nearly enough. We need far more attention on developing the capacity of school principals, and specifically developing the capacity of the people who are employed to support them. In many of the parts of the country, it's called circuit team managers or IDSOs. Those people have a responsibility to support the school principals, and at the moment they are not trained well enough to do that either.
Well, I mean, one could call this, and I think you call it that too, radical education transformation, right? That's what we need. I mean, the resources are there. Huge amounts of money in South Africa are dedicated to that. There's the backlog challenge, obviously, new infrastructure that has to be built and so forth. But my question to you is the education fit for purpose in terms of the developmental needs and economic needs of South Africa?
We can have this conversation around fourth industrial revolution and coding and all of that. But you know, Tim, at the moment, 78% of the grade 4s in our country cannot read at grade level. And if you cannot read at grade level in grade 4, you have no chance of ever achieving tertiary education. You have no chance actually of finishing matric with a good foundation. So I agree that we need to spend more time looking at how we fit for purpose, etc. My personal interest is more around at least giving more children a shot at a dignified life, because at the moment we are letting too many children down by not giving them kids sit for 12 years, they go to school every single day, they leave matric, and you and I will not want to employ them because they don't have the basic foundational skills in literacy and numeracy and critical thinking.
And you know, Dr.
Yes,
Louise,
we need to look at the fourth industrial revolution.
Yeah, sorry. I mean, I'm coming in there to say we've spoken about the different role players, the government, the unions, right, and the corporates, the support that can be provided. We haven't said much about the communities and the parents. They too have an influential role to play, I suppose, in improving the situation at many of schools in South Africa.
Huge role. So again, what we found is that in the 5,000 schools, there is a whole infrastructure around supporting and communal support, and parents know what their job is, etc. In most of the other 20,000 schools, parents don't know what their job is because we haven't been inviting them, we've not been enrolling them. So a lot of the work that we do now is around mobilizing parents, inviting parents in to be part of the solutions, inviting parents to help, because our kids can't read, Tim, and that's not something that we can only do in the classroom. We know that our children spend 20% of their awake hours they spend at school, the rest of the time in the community. So we need parents and elders and grannies and aunties and uncles to be involved and to read with children and to help them realize how important this is, and to ask the questions around how's it going at school, and to be interested. Even though those aunties and uncles and grandmothers cannot read themselves, they can at least ask the children to read to them. And they can, instead of buying nonsense, they can buy a book and puzzles and Lego, the things that children need in order to develop the necessary skills.
Sure, and of course children being curious will definitely take to the books and do what they can to learn as much as they can. Quick response from you, what can the public do, the corporates do to support you?
So it's very easy. They just need to call us and we'll come and explain, have a possibility conversation with them, and we'll look for ways in which we can tap into the assets in those corporates. Some corporates might want to be involved in particular schools and be a partner to a principal, but some corporates want to say, we in IT, we just want to make sure that every IT lab in our country works and that the children have access to the necessary technology.
Sure.
Or someone else might just want to say, I'm an HR organization and I'd like to support HR. So we have a whole team of people who are ready to go and have a conversation with anybody who wants to be helped.
All right. Well, those who are in the corporate world or are professionals who want to help, please make contact with Partners for Possibility. Dr. Louise van Rijn is the founder of that organization. They're doing amazing work at schools throughout South Africa. Just Google them, check them, and make contact with them. Thank you, Dr. Louise van Rijn, for having been our guest. And I would love to hear your views on this matter. Hashtag on Twitter, the Modise Network. When I return, I will be talking to author and campaigner against the global weapons industry corruption, Andrew Feinstein. He's based in London.